We are going to be joined here on stage by two phenomenal local advocates. First, we have Ian Siemens. He is the Dallas City Hall advocate from Environment, Texas. And we also, joining him, have Jimena Vivanco with Trinity Park Conservancy. Jimena is a conservation manager. Ian is going to be talking a little bit about building the Coalition for Bird-Friendly Convention Center. And Jimena is going to be talking about engaging youth as drivers of long-term sustainability. So let's just jump right in. Jimena, if you want to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your work.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Jimena Vivanco. I'm the conservation manager for a local nonprofit called Trinity Park Conservancy. And so if you're familiar with the beautiful green belt of the Trinity River that we have here downtown, kind of adorned with our two white bridges, that's us. And a really exciting thing that I love to announce anytime I have a chance is that we're building a park, a very exciting space for community to come together and come to the river, which is a very critical point of our infrastructure, I would argue, and also something that we are kind of culturally separate from. I talk about this all the time. I mean, you see how San Antonio has its Riverwalk and the coast in Houston. They all have a kind of connection. Even Fort Worth has a little bit of a better working relationship with our river here in Dallas. And so a lot of what I do is helping create a culture of conservation here in Dallas and kind of create stewardship for our river. So as a conservation manager, in preparation for our park being open, there's a lot of programming and education we do within the community just to get people excited, get to know their river before they have a chance to meet it at our park.
That is phenomenal advocacy. I'm gonna let Ian, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work.
Howdy, my name is Ian Siemens. I am the Dallas City Hall advocate for the nonprofit Environment, Texas. We're a nonprofit that works across the state of Texas for clean air, clean water, wildlife, open spaces, and a livable climate for all Texans. My role at Environment Texas is primarily at the municipal level around North Texas, working with city governments, commissions, North Central Texas Council of Governments on occasion, and many other entities to drive environmental progress for the North Texas area.
Phenomenal. Thank you both for joining us. Jimena, we're going to start off with you. I am very excited about Harold Simmons Park. Can you tell us a little bit about that project and then tell us what it is that young advocates are getting excited about as far as your work and the work that Trinity Park Conservancy does?
For sure. Thank you. So the park that I'm talking about today, Harold Simmons Park, has been a part of conversations here in the city of Dallas for longer than I've been alive. Decades. And the idea really wasn't solidified or wasn't put into motion until 2018 when we had a very significant donation of $50 million from Annette Simmons in honor of her late husband, Harold Simmons Park. And so that really financially kicked off this project and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to re-envision this river? And then since I joined in those 5 short years, Tony Moore, who's actually in the audience, was the new CEO for this project, and he really brought in new life. And within this time, this 30-year idea has materialized. We have the land, we have the design, we are putting shovel into the ground. And so while this has been a long time coming, like I said, these 5 years, it's been my job to get people, first of all, excited, aware that there's a park, and then also just like the ultimate goal for the park, which is to be connecting people to the river, trying to do that now before we even have a location for them to come to. And we do that through our summer workforce program, which is a bit of a unique way here in Dallas that we are connecting youth to nature. So a big barrier whenever we talk about getting people excited, to care about the environment, to be advocates of it, is like, how do you even start? Which community members are you getting to? And I focus a lot on the youth for a few reasons. They're almost baked. we can put in a few more, save the water, save the trees in there before they have fully matured. But it also gives an opportunity to see, hey, right before I enter the real world, these are all of these opportunities in nature here locally that I had no idea about. And so we take a lot of young individuals who live here, have lived here their whole lives, but maybe have never even been out to the river. And in a very short summer, they become the strongest advocates. They learn all about it, and they come out of it transformed, and not just caring about their river, but caring about their environment. They get to learn about things like building collisions and birds, and how they, as architects, as psychologists, as lawyers, can incorporate conservation in their day-to-day life. And so that is the small seed that we have been planting 5 years prior to park opening. And these kids will be the young adults, the people graduating college, looking for new jobs, that will have their heart set on Dallas because they want to protect their river and their community.
I love the idea of giving young Dallas residents ownership over their community spaces and the public places that we can all enjoy as families and community members. One of the other spaces that folks not from Dallas enjoy is the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center. As a Dallasite, we've probably all been there once or twice. And, thanks to Ian and his work and campaign, folks in my place on the Environmental Commission learned about this problem that we did not know or understand existed. And so I'm going to let Ian talk a little bit more about what is that issue, and then how did you build a coalition in order to help get to the solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start off. So you might have already seen the news about the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center, particularly the great news that they will be putting bird-friendly glass on it. Yes, thank you. And you might have also, previous to that, just seen the news of like, oh, birds are flying into the convention center and that this is a problem. So to give some background on that, or if you haven't seen one of those stories, the problem is pretty stark, and it's that since 1970, about 3 billion birds are now out of our skies. And that is a massive population decline across the board. About half of all bird species are currently in decline. That is due to a number of reasons, one of those being habitat loss primarily, pesticide use, but funnily enough, the number one and number two human causes of bird death directly are cats and our buildings. So unfortunately, about 600 million to 1 billion birds die every year from running into our buildings, primarily the glass in our windows. You might think, wow, that is a big number, and yes, it is. And that also you might not have heard about this before. And that is because they're most likely being carried away from your home and the buildings around you, either by, staff that are meant to clean up those things, or by vultures and other animals that are scavenging them. The problem really is that birds, they have eyes on either side of their head. They don't have very much binocular vision like we do. We can tell how far away things are and kind of judge reflections and all of that pretty well because we have two eyes that have a cone of vision that encompasses a large area, so we can kind of compare and see, oh, okay, that thing is directly in front of me. Also, you and I are usually not flying at dozens of miles an hour trying not to be eaten at a given time. And also not flying at night while in migration season. All of those things mean that birds either mistake transparency for being able to fly through the glass, or they mistake the reflection that's on a window for the real thing, whether that be the sky or habitat, then flying into it. Another compounding factor on this is our lighting in urban areas. We are, in most areas of the United States, not very careful with what we are lighting up. Unfortunately, whenever you have lights that are shining upwards, or have a lot of light trespass, as it is called, whenever you don't have a shield on your light, that light is going upwards. That can blind birds, especially during migration season, leading them to run into large structures. And that also even attracts birds, because most birds do migrate using the stars and the moon and such. And so whenever you have large areas like DFW that are just extremely bright, then birds end up kind of unconsciously navigating towards those areas. Unfortunately, Dallas is at the heart of this problem. According to a couple of scientific studies, we are the third most dangerous metropolitan area in the United States for birds due to that light trespass and kind of the area involved there. So seeing that, some of our partners, especially Texas Conservation Alliance, who I cannot give them flowers enough for all of the work that they do. Texas Conservation Alliance in 2020 founded the Lights Out Dallas initiative. So they got funding to train up volunteers around Dallas to go out before the sun rises at 5 in the morning to gather in the parking lot of the Perot Museum and then traverse all of downtown in these circuits to try to find all of the birds that have collided with buildings. And they have done this now for about 6 years. This is the 6th year.
They're still doing it every morning.
They're still doing it every morning. If you want to join them, just come up to me afterwards. I can get you the link. If you too want to go pick up dead birds at 5 in the morning. But the point of all of this effort, people are not necessarily getting up at 5 a.m. to pick up dead birds for fun. It is instead to document the problem. And that problem is pretty large. These volunteers found hundreds of dead birds each season in Dallas over their surveys. They engaged dozens and dozens of volunteers to pick up all of these birds. And they noticed one very striking pattern, and that is that more than any other building in the city of Dallas, birds were colliding with the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center. And this is due to, we believe, a number of factors involved here. It's placement on the edge of downtown. You have a large flat highway, and then bam, the first building there, it's about 3 to 5 stories tall, depending on where it's at. There's this large glass structure. Additionally, there is habitat kind of on either side of some key areas. There's a glass sky bridge with the Omni in particular that's about 2.5 stories tall or so. And it has trees and foliage and everything on either side of it. So if you're a bird that's for the first time in its life coming to the city of Dallas, we welcome you with our convention center and some habitat for you to nest in. And then you go to wake up in the morning and you go to forage for some food, or you're trying to run away from a hawk that is predating you in the downtown area. You run smack dab into this multi-story sky bridge that you thought was just totally transparent and clear while you're trying to get from one tree to another. So 30% of all of the dead birds that they found in the core of Dallas were at this one building. So starting from that very compelling premise of this is one particular example that we can do something about, Texas Conservation Alliance said, okay, we have something to advocate on, because the city announced a multi-billion-dollar expansion, renovation, call it what you will, of the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center. In effect, what the city is doing is tearing down the building, rebuilding it almost a block away, and at the cost of many billions of dollars. And this provides us at least an opportunity to fix this problem, because all of the areas at issue here are going to be renovated, are going to be replaced. We can now do it right the first time. So seeing this, Mei Ling Liu, who was the conservation director, community conservation director for Texas Conservation Alliance, she was in charge of the Lights Out program here in DFW. She saw this great opportunity and she started going to her partners. However, most of her partners, like Texas Conservation Alliance, are 501c3s that do not have a whole lot of advocacy resources, expertise, experience, and volunteers. So she reached out to Environment Texas. My role being exactly that, of knowing how the city of Dallas operates, knowing the ins and outs of bureaucracy and everything. I was the person that she tapped to try to help put together this coalition and move this forward. So first off, I think that all coalitions start with the humbling opportunity of asking for help. And it is knowing where your skills lie and knowing where the skills of others lie, and finding where we can best work together so that we can both benefit each other. Moving forward from that, we had a built-in group of real stakeholders involved through the Lights Out program. This program involving volunteers from many different nonprofits, also including the Dallas Zoo, the Perot Museum, and many Texas Master Naturalist volunteers and others. So our first stop was really to tap into those that are already stakeholders in this, which was all of those organizations, having conversations about what they would be comfortable doing, what their resources are, and what their unique adds are to this campaign. We then branched out also to the state level as well and the national level by asking Audubon Texas to also join us. They have advocacy experience and resources, however, in Austin, so doing that from afar through their membership at least. We also reached out to American Bird Conservancy. They are the experts in the United States and perhaps also internationally on the issue of bird collisions. How you can fix this is with bird-friendly glass. They actually provide a standards and a whole rigorous process of determining what glass is bird-friendly. It really boils down to you need to have some kind of etching or stickers on the outside of the window about every 2 inches by 2 inches to ensure that these birds are able to see that. They're kind of semi-transparent. Humans, you don't see them very much once you're about, less than a dozen feet away on the inside. However, on the outside, these are over top of any kind of transparency, any kind of reflection, and birds see that 2 inches and they're like, okay, I can't fit my wingspan between those 2 inches. Most birds can't. This decreases those bird collisions by more than 90%. Additionally, Texas Conservation Alliance was already an expert in the fact that, if we make sure that our lighting is essentially dark skies friendly, shielded, pointed towards the ground, more orange instead of light blue, that all of these things also benefit our birds and our migration. So having these solutions, American Bird Conservancy provided their technical expertise because they have worked with jurisdictions across the United States, provided case studies and wording on exactly how we could approach this. There are many, many other partners in this that I just really do not have time to name, but I'll mention a few. We also tapped Sean Fitzgerald, if any of you know him. He's a just absolutely wonderful nature photographer from the Deep Ellum area. We asked him, hey, can we use your photography studio to host a VIP event where we can talk to many of the folks that are in this area of decision making in the city, bring them in, do some education, have some nice cheese, and talk about the issue of dead birds. And so he had previously been involved in this through taking photographs of these lights out surveys as well. He graciously accepted and hosted us. The Dallas Farmers Market was another great partner. The Dallas Farmers Market hosted a bird-friendly community day for us, and all of our organizations were able to go out to table and get petition signatures. A few of those unique value adds, Environment Texas, our advocacy expertise, we created a petition, we provided testimony, etc. Texas Conservation Alliance was our convener. They hosted our coalition calls. They did the arduous work of calendaring for a dozen different organizations to find good dates and times. Many other folks, Trinity River Audubon Center, also provided their expertise and their credibility with the city. Dallas Zoo also did some great work because, everybody loves the zoo, frankly. All of these organizations, we could not have done it without this broad coalition of folks, because in February, we did get that great announcement from the city that they will be putting bird-friendly glass on the convention center. Our next steps as a coalition, working together, we will ensure that that this bird-friendly glass is actually implemented according to the best standards and that it is in the final design on the building. And so we will also be advocating for, as I mentioned earlier, that dark skies lighting as well, which has so far not been committed to yet. So we will be working on that. And I also want to thank Catherine as well for the Environmental Commission's portion of this. In addition to all of these nonprofit organizations, we did go to the Environmental Commission, provided them information about this problem. They passed a recommendation as well to the city to ensure that we had bird-friendly lighting and glass on the convention center. So also thank you, Catherine.
And thank you for your advocacy. This has been months and months and months of work. Ian mentioned so many organizations, and the name of the organization doesn't really represent the breadth of their membership and the folks that are getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? But if getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going and putting on a little headlamp and looking for birds is not your cup of tea, Jimena, tell us what it is that we can do to support. What are the volunteer opportunities to engage? Is the park, are all the details completed? Are there opportunities to advance and support? What does that look like, especially for young folks, that we can go out and share that opportunity with them?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And so, I mean, just a little bit more update on the park. Like I said, in 5 short years, we have done a lot of sprinting in comparison to what we've done in the past 30. But the park is set to be open in a few short more years, 2028. Start putting that on your calendar. Until then, any practical real-world applications and volunteers with Trinity Park Conservancy personally are a little bit limited. But part of my job with the Trinity River Crew in the summer is exposing them to all of the wonderful places and organizations that already do exist in the Trinity River. And I mean, Ian just named a few, but the Audubon Centers, multiple, by the way, which we have up here in North Texas, plenty of the Dallas County Preserves, Green Space Dallas. I mean, the list goes on in terms of the presence of environmental spaces. I have a very long list. All the high schoolers get to see it in person, and then they're able to just take whichever organizations align with them, whether it's TCA through advocacy or if it's trail building with green space. But there are ways to plug in at any level. And even if you are the least outdoorsy person, the biggest thing that I instill within these young folk is I'm not trying to make all of y'all scientists. We need the lawyers that care about the environment to make a difference. We need the hairstylists that are focused on sustainable practices to make a difference. Do you know what I mean? It comes down to caring about your environment, caring about your community, and being invested in that sustainability wherever that applies in your life.
And you talked a little bit about cultural connection to the river. I think when I think of the Trinity River, I also grew up in Fort Worth. We used to go down to the banks of the river and have little picnics, and my family would have all their gatherings there. We would have Easter on the banks of the Trinity River in Fort Worth. And it is such a beautiful space, and that is why I'm looking forward to being able to take my kiddos to the new park and to go visit there. But it's more than that. It's more about just making memories. It's about our cultural connection to the water. So talk a little bit about that.
Our culture and our history, I think, is a huge part. And I always refer back to Fort Worth because we are basically sister cities, and we have the same river. But the same river that Catherine had a chance to explore and enjoy and play and make wonderful memories in, there's a lot of very real community members here in Dallas that had somebody die out there. There was a lot of crime out there. There was a lot of neglect, or rather mistrust, from the community in how we handle and take care of that particular resource and just amenity. The rivers has a really bad rap here. It used to be called the mythological river of death. So how do you come back from that kind of branding and marketing? And it's that relationship building. A very big part of my job is simply, hey, let's go to the river. Let's go see it. Let's go be in it and see how our idea and what we grew up with is so different than what it currently is. I'll finish up just a little bit with my experience. I grew up here in DFW. I knew of the Trinity in some concept. I didn't have any personal relationships to it. Working now as a conservation manager there, I'm in that corridor every single day. And the way that it has changed me and the way that I care about this river is something that I want to share with the rest of my community who has lived there for generations, who has grown up there, who have had their parents and grandparents take graduation pictures there by the skyline. And that's a testament to our community, bringing back the community to the river, but also bringing nature back to the river. That's a big one. Some more context, the floodway that I talk about, it is managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. It is a floodway. It is kind of constructed. And so what you see out there is technically not natural. That is not what was there hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I'll wrap up with this part. I read like a 900-page environmental impact assessment of the corridor that was made over a decade ago. It's very outdated. And it was going through just the biodiversity and the state of that space. When you look at it now, it's a stark comparison. And I do talk, my favorite story is about the bald eagles that are out there. For the real people in West Dallas that know the Trinity, they know the eagles are out there. They're not as popular as the White Rock Lake eagles because they don't have as much presence. But those eagles were not reported in the environmental impact assessment over a decade ago. And so what I do want to say is they are very prominent. It's very hard to miss them. They weren't there before. They are there now. They are breeding. They are coming back. And it is a testament to how that green belt that we kind of like left, neglected, don't want to think about, nasty is dirty. It's not. And it's actually a really beautiful space that has life, that has growth. And I cannot wait for all y'all to connect with it.
And thriving. And it's coming, yes, absolutely. And it is a place where we as Dallas residents can also thrive and take our families so that they can thrive and also enjoy nature. Jimena and Ian, thank you both so very much for your advocacy, first of all, and for sharing your experiences here with us today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
We get some questions for them?
We are going to have some, open it up to just a couple of questions. I see Julie. I'll share my microphone here, and then we have a question right behind you, David. Or, oh, David's got a mic. Okay.
In regards to the river and rebuilding the biodiversity there to support the migratory as well as the local habitat that have evolved over millennia together, what are the plans of reintroducing our native vegetation into the landscape to support rebuilding of our pollinators and other wildlife?
I love this question. So I'll start off and emphasize some of the constraints and limits that we have. As our nonprofit, we are not allowed to go willy-nilly and plant seeds down in the corridor. That is not allowed because, again, it is a flood space. It is heavily managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and ultimately, number one priority, we talked about it with The Economist, it comes down to the humans, right? If the human life is being affected, then everything else kind of going to go crazy. And so we do have these flood levees as a protection because Dallas was severely affected by floods in the early 20th century. 1908 was a very particular bad one. And so for that reason, that space ultimately is kind of off hands. We cannot do too much within that space. However, we are taking full advantage and opportunity in the built spaces that we are making for this park. So while it encompasses the corridor, we are creating overlooks, which are spaces, our west overlook is probably going to be the most transformative. It used to be used for war tank, like World War tank supplies, steel, that kind of stuff. And we're taking that whole space that was used for construction and we're adding thousands of trees into it. Not just any trees, mostly Texas native and climate adapted. So we're also thinking ahead, what kind of plants are going to thrive here, are local here, that the species that are relative to this area are going to benefit from the most, but also which of these species are we being particular about that will continue to thrive in this area in 50 years. Because if y'all don't know, our climate is changing. It is modifying. And so how do we make sure that the tree that we're planting today is going to be a tree that thrives in that climate in 50 years, for example, so that we have continued habitat resource for all of the species that will be using it. So I'll say this, I'll wrap it up. iNaturalist, I use that all the time to get a better sense of what we have out in the river. We've got over 1,000 species out there. So there's no doubt that currently, even though it's not the pristine Blackland prairie that I would love to have out there, it still supports plenty of wildlife out there. The number of trees, plants, and native species that we're going to be putting in the West Overlook alone, as just from a scientific, logistical mindset, that's going to double. That's going to double the amount of species that we're able to take care of. And you see really great examples like 12 Hills Nature Center. And if you all familiar with that here in Dallas, it's tiny. It's 5 acres, but that holds double the amount that I see in the corridor. So with the 50 acres of the West Overlook, we're going to be making a pretty big impact, and I'm really excited. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. What a delightful panel I walked into just randomly. Okay, thank you for this education. I do love birds. And I do have a very specific, narrow question, and that is, to the degree you're able to share, what is the cost of the bird-friendly glass retrofit of the convention center?
Yeah, so for some comparison, a similar retrofit that was done on McCormick Place in Chicago, they used stickers in that case. I think that ended up totaling out to under $1 million. It's for a project that is, I believe, currently at $3.6 billion. That is, 0.0000001% or so. I think that's a great trade-off for making sure that our birds are not impacted, that hundreds and hundreds of birds, well, more realistically, over the course of the lifetime of the center, thousands of birds are not killed. That is a great benefit. It is much, much, much easier to not kill species than it is to bring them back. That is the most cost-efficient conservation that we can do. If we are looking at glass, that is typically for commercial glass around approximately double what regular glass costs in that same kind of commercial kind of area. One other area that is a benefit as well is that much of the bird-friendly glass also is up to the best standards of energy efficiency, et cetera. So there can also be a cost benefit long-term there as well from decreased heating and cooling costs on the building.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I just add to that? Because I think you bring up really good points. Glass, it's going to be expensive. And so I think a question that we have as designers of our built space is the aesthetic versus the sustainability element to it. The glass is beautiful, but maybe it's more expensive, and having totally glass buildings isn't the most cost effective when it comes to our energy. So how do we build differently and smarter?
All right, we have time for one more question.
Hi, thank you for being here today. I am a high school student from Frisco, just like 45 minutes up from here.
Yeah. Give it up.
Thank you. So in our local ISD, there's a program called Independent Study and Mentorship. And currently in that class, I'm studying environmental law and conservation storytelling through education that's both visual, vocal, and I've been giving presentations to local elementary schools and middle schools and how they can have control over their urban ecosystems, just in their front yard or backyard, how they can promote having more pollinators, help the birds, and et cetera. And I've been trying to help them figure out how they can stop so many bird collisions, as you guys talked about just here. And you mentioned the stickers, and I also mentioned the stickers to them, but I've been facing a lot of backlash and questionable, people, their parents are emailing me questionable about what I taught them. And I'm only saying I've only said what I said from what I've learned from my mentor, his name is Mr. Sam Kieschnick. He works for Texas Park and Wildlife.
We love Sam! Give it up for Sam!
Amazing! I told him all about how I'm here and how much fun I've been having. So, I guess it's just about trying to battle that emotional stuff.
Change is hard. Change is hard, right? And when you're introducing new ideas and new concepts, there's always going to be a little bit of resistance against change. I also have a 7-year-old, and she will put stickers on everything that I allow her to. So this is like phenomenal. I could put stickers on all the glass. But do you want to talk a little bit about how you can, maybe connect and provide resources and some more data that you can use in your response to say, okay, well, this is where I got this data from. Let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's collaborate and see if there is a solution that you're willing to implement in your home that works for you, that also helps us get towards the goal, right?
Yeah, I would say American Bird Conservancy, I already mentioned them as one of our partners, but I can't emphasize enough, like, if you want data and information, hard science on the effectiveness of different anti-collision technologies, then I highly recommend American Bird Conservancy. They have just an absolute wealth of resources on their website that is also very easy to access. They have both resources for commercial settings as well as residential. Kind of on that personal scale, often whenever I'm talking about bird collisions, I start by talking about, okay, like, who in the room has ever had a bird collide with a window in their home where you hear the thunk? Yeah,
See?
and then you look outside and there is a bird who, honestly, the best circumstance is it is just stone cold dead. It is honestly worse whenever it is still alive and kind of writhing around on the ground, because most birds, even if it then gets up and flies away, has internal bleeding, it has all kinds of other issues, and is probably not going to make it. That is a tragedy, and if I can prevent that with the cost of $15 worth of stickers for, you know, pretty large amount of windows, highly recommend Feather Friendly, by the way, as a resource as well. They're a company that makes stickers primarily aimed at the residential market, very effective. Put some on my parents' home, especially where they have a set of windows that has a lot of collisions just directly under a tree. Also, there is besides that personal story, also the visual storytelling element, as I'm sure you are familiar with, kind of being in this arena. There are a couple of really great documentaries that really bring the point home. There is one about the Lights Out DFW here in Texas, Lights Out Texas documentary. It's about 30 minutes. It's not too long at all, freely available on Vimeo, I believe. There is also another Lights Out related documentary on McCormick Place in Chicago, what happened there. And I think that PBS also just aired a documentary about also in New York City, their convention center, same problem. What is it with convention centers? That they fixed that, added a green roof, added bird-friendly glass, all kinds of stuff there. Highly recommend all of those things, because it is really, just building that empathy of, hey, if this is something, it's not especially visible to me past 15 feet, it's not especially ugly, and it's going to save a pretty decent number of animal lives, I think a lot of people are going to make that trade-off.
Let me mention this. I began when I was your age, so I started speaking out. I'm 75 now. I've been speaking out for 60 years. Take care of yourself. When the young activist asked me, what do I need to do? I said, get a good night's sleep. We're going to need you again tomorrow. Okay? So take care of yourself. There are people like these two young people on this stage. I'd be glad to talk to you. I'd be glad to talk to you. But there are a dozen people in this room be glad to sit down and talk to you. Okay, to encourage you. Yeah. Because this is difficult work, but it's important work. What you're doing really matters. We thank you for coming, driving here 45 minutes from Frisco.
Yes, absolutely.
And having the courage to ask for this microphone and say what you said. We're glad you're here today. You're the reason we're here today. Literally.
Yeah.
You're the reason we're doing this today. You're the reason we have a section called Human Infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we want young people like you to come do this with us. Okay? So thank you for being here. And everybody in this room is available to you.
That's right.
Okay? We're here for you. Let us know what you need. Continue that work. What you're doing is really important. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Okay?
All right, that's all for our questions. We are going to go back into our tabling exercise now, okay? I know that there's a lot of good discussion to be had on this topic. If you weren't here earlier and you're sitting at a table by yourself, feel free to just come on and join some of these other tables. We're going to talk about it for a little bit, and then we're going to synthesize those responses and get someone from each table like we've been doing to tell us what it is that your takeaway is on this section of our conversation about human infrastructure. All right, go for it.
Go for it.
And thanks to Humana and Ian once again.